This is Glambition Radio, episode number 280, Intentional Congruence with entrepreneur Jessica Mead.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go.
Hello from the Florida Keys. I am currently on vacation with the kiddos. Just wanted to drop a quick note for this show today and say hello. It's been, wow, just an amazing trip. First of all, I forgot how much I miss travel and travel kind of far from home. It's just been amazing to not only be with the kids, but last week, if you saw my social and our social for the Trust, we were in Miami Beach with our members. And wow, what an incredible meeting. Our guest, Carolyn Aronson from It's a 10, blew us away. That woman, just the decisions she made and what she shared and opened up with was just incredible. I can't wait to share more insights when I'm back. And we got a great guest for you today. Jessica Mead has been someone who really has built her businesses under the radar, which I think is really enticing right now and has really now kind of coming out into the limelight because she really wants to inspire other women. Really great story. I want you to listen to some of the things that she did and created and did things a bit differently. There's a lot you can learn from this show. All right. Enjoy this show. Have a great listen. And I will connect with you when I'm back. Jessica, I'd like to know where you are right now.
I am in Seattle, Washington. We live between here and California. So we are currently here right now.
And which is your favorite?
Oh, tough question. So I am in love with Seattle. I love the weather, which is probably an odd thing to say. Most people wouldn't expect that. From about April to October, we've been all over the world, 30 plus countries. It's the best weather I've ever seen.
Yeah, in the summer.
Well, spring, summer, fall. It truly is remarkable.
Yeah. And where are you in California when you come down?
So we have a home in Encino, which is kind of there on the back of the Santa Monica Hills. We live in the hills over there, which is really nice. We have a great place, very private, big yard, all the things that we don't have here because we live in a penthouse in Seattle. So we're up high, which is super groovy, seeing the Puget Sound and then Lake Union and all of that, but it's totally different.
You get both. Living the dream.
Yeah.
So you came across my desk and I was like, who is this woman? Just it's very, very interesting. And I'm like, well, let's get her on the show. This is going to be a great conversation because there's so many places I want to go with you on here. I mean, there's, first of all, your story and your background, which I think is really interesting, juxtaposed to where you have put yourself today and what you've created for yourself along with your husband. And then there's, the ventures and your business acumen that you obviously have with what you've created. And then I found out that you're a homeschooling mom and you were homeschooling before it was cool. You were homeschooling when it was weird. You were homeschooling
Super
when
weird.
You were a weird mom. Yeah. And now we're like the cool moms. Although I didn't start doing it until the last 2 years. And it's a game changer, man. I have to tell you. So we can talk about that too. But I think the best place to start is probably a bit about your background and a little bit in the adventures of kind of how you became Jessica Mead. Can we start there?
Sure, absolutely. How far do you want me to go back? I grew up with a single mom. And she kind of worked any job she could. We lived in her car. We lived on the beach. I lived all over Florida. That's where I learned to get the most out of relationships as quick as I could and make them meaningful because people came and went in my life all the time. I moved on. She met a gentleman, moved on to Texas and kind of grew up in and out of homes with them and got to high school and decided I am never going to be an entrepreneur like my mom and my stepdad. They tried so many things and they failed and we struggled and suffered as kids. I'm the oldest of 7. So it was just a life that I looked at and I was scared to death of. So I tried anything.
What kind of
and
businesses did they
everything.
have? Just to give us a picture, like what kind of businesses were they trying that you were witnessing as a young adult?
They would try anything from home repairs to flipping homes to in the ice cream business, which is super seasonal, didn't understand the need to save any money for winter. And I mean, we'd lose our house, lose everything in it, live in hotels if we could, live in the storage unit that we had. Like it was craziness.
Wow.
It was devastating, I think, being the oldest to see my siblings underneath me struggle like they did. So I went into adulthood with an approach of I'm going to find something that I align with and I'm going to hold on to it and I'm going to take it and ride it all the way to have a nice, comfortable life. And then I met Matt, who had this little publishing company, and he needed help. He needed a designer. He needed somebody to lay out magazines, somebody to handle accounts. And it wasn't for me because I didn't want to do that. I needed to just stick to school, and I worked at a bank and it felt comfortable. But he kind of drugged me into, he's like, man, you've got these things I see that you don't understand that you have. And we're going to do so good together. And I did. I worked with him part-time. I went to Kinko's at night, paid for computer time for the guys that were up there designing.
I remember those
albums.
Days. Yeah. Remember you go in there and sit at the little Mac and
exactly.
for your time. And it was very exciting.
That's where I learned to design. I learned how to be a designer there. They taught me, of course, like the cool things, like how to put gold teeth on people and stuff like that. But that's how I got into design. And he went from about 65,000 a year. We did over $1 million 1 year in together. And we realized we had this magic together. And that changed my perspective on being an entrepreneur and have not looked back since. We've built, oh goodness, dozens of companies, from restaurants to publishing companies to data companies to dealerships, with lots of different things, built them up, either held on to them, rolled them into other companies, whatever we've done, sold them off, just many different things that we've done throughout the last 20 years together. It's been quite a ride.
So, most people have trouble building one company. And then I hear you saying, you were able to build several. How did you know where to start? Did this come naturally to you? Did you learn from him? Did you have mentors? Did you just have a lot of hard knocks and figure it out?
I think what's cool about our dynamic is that he's the data guy. He's very analytical. He looks at things a certain way. And then I'm kind of the 30,000 feet, can look at a problem or look at some type of business that we're thinking about creating and see everywhere it could possibly go. So between the two of us, I would say we're pretty fearless. We have a lot of confidence and we trust ourselves. We always know the numbers going into any business. And unless you know the numbers, you shouldn't be in business. And then we jump in. A lot of our companies have come out of a need because we see a hole in an area and we're filling that hole for something that we need inside of our walls. For example, when we were deploying emails for customers, there's a lot of false email companies that are bots, that are non-human traffic. And it bothered us that it's acceptable to have a certain level of non-human traffic and it be okay in that area. So we built our own email platform so that we knew it was 100% authentic and that we were delivering exactly what we said. So a lot of our companies have come out of that type of need.
Okay, cool. Now, when you think about what it really takes for people to kind of step into the car, what I'm hearing that I want to bring out for everyone listening is there's a fearlessness though about you, like juxtaposed to your past, right? Where you saw kind of this like nonstop train wreck of like businesses that were maybe a good idea, but executed poorly, not thought through, things kind of blowing up and you moving on to the next one. And I just have these visuals of you all like packing back into the car and like driving down to the next, let's start a copier company. Like,
yeah.
and actually it's a metaphor for how many of us feel sometimes, right? Like we start one thing and then we're like, oh, maybe this isn't working. And we go to the next thing. But you have to get to a point, that you do push through, right? And it sounds like you've done that, like with these larger ventures. Where do you know that line, putting the past aside now, where do you know that line to keep pushing with an idea when it may not be face value? You may just have to see like beyond that.
That's a really tough one because I tend to leave a lot of emotion out of business. I think where we fail ourselves is that we are so in love with an idea that sometimes we ignore signs, or sometimes we ignore the fact that the numbers aren't going to work unless we have a massive shift or change in our plan. And we hold on to it so tight that we lose sight of exactly what the whole purpose of, and that is to go into business for ourselves and to create a different type of lifestyle, whether it's just for us or for our family. I think it's really important to constantly check in on things like that and make sure that we are in it for the right reasons, and that if we're going to push forward, we have a really good understanding of why and what the other side looks like and how we're going to get there, not just a hope and a prayer that eventually our passion is going to come through for us. It's a slippery slope there, because I think in life we fear success as much as we fear failure. And that's a terrible thing to really understand. But success or failure, they're the outcome either way. So why fear any of that? Just trust in yourself, trust in the process, know your numbers. Make sure that when you get into business with people, you have aligned self-interest and you're setting the foundation to move forward in a very positive and healthy way.
Yeah. Many of the women I work with are more of that creative entrepreneur profile and really benefit from having a partner or coach or someone kind of looking at the real deal numbers on the back end. Right.
Yeah. And it's vital.
And once in a while, give them a whack in the head. Yeah. It really goes with it. You seem like you just no nonsense approach to things. So what's refreshing about you is your personal brand came after your success. You often see the opposite of that online a lot.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So
it's funny how that came about if you want to hear this story, because it's very interesting to me. If you'd like to hear it, I'll share it with you. But we can move on. If not, it's not a big deal.
I think it's great. It was just great to see someone with a personal brand who actually had business experience versus put on the cute hat and got on Instagram, and suddenly is a business expert. That's why I really wanted to talk with you. But please share how that came about, because I want to emphasize to people too, I think there's going to be a coveted time where people are going to be delighted to quietly just make a lot of money in the background. Like my dream is to disappear off the internet at some point.
So that was me. That was me beforehand. We've always been very private. We've always owned everything. We invest in people. We're very generous by nature because we believe in that generosity leads to greatness for everybody on the other side. But how I ended up with having a brand, Matt and I were looking at acquiring this company, very large company. It was, I believe, $28 million deal. It was a big deal. And we knew that what was needed for this company was exactly what we had. The problem was neither Matt nor I had any presence, any social presence. There was no social proofing at all for us because we didn't really exist. No LinkedIn, none of that, because we had just been quietly in the background building our life and doing what we love. And that's building business and building relationships and making connections, building bridges for people to get to where they want to go to in life. That's a big thing for us. And we lost that deal because they had no idea who we were. They had seen that both of us had contributed different business articles, Fortune 500, Business Insider, things like that, but they couldn't find anything on us. And even though our financials proved that we could do what we said, they had a really hard time believing that we were who we were.
That's interesting. I wouldn't think that would matter in something like that, but they obviously were looking for it.
You have no idea the impact of social proofing right now. And it's crazy to me because in my mind, that's completely bogus. Like, how do you prove someone's worth by that? But we see it every day. People are making millions of dollars just because of that, because of that social presence, and because they're willing to do things on these platforms. And it's crazy how we rely on that. And these people become experts just because they say they are, or they put themselves out there in this way. And then we rely on them for things. But yeah, so we lost that deal and we realized that, hey, we're growing at a rate. And we also are looking at the future. What do we want for our kids? We started a foundation, and he and I both growing up with challenges. I won't share his, that's his personal story, but mine especially, I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to lose everything and start over constantly and not have a home and things like that. So it's important to me to leave something behind that helps in even the smallest way. So we decided we need to have personal brand. We need to, as a way to show people that, we exist and we're authentic and we're real. And anybody that I ever talk to, I think that's the takeaway, is that I am what I am, and you're going to get exactly who I am, raw or not. I lead that way because I think if we're our true authentic selves, then we allow ourselves to just evolve into this greater version on a continuous basis. And we show other people that it's possible and that anything is truly possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a way that you can influence and help others without even knowing it, right? Letting them see your story and feel like where you've been. And so that's like the legacy part of it. And I love the foundation as well, like you guys, what you're doing. Gosh, I don't know where to go. Here's where I want to go. Okay. I'm going through everything I want to ask, but I'd love to segue into the book, Firework Humans.
Okay.
I'd love to segue into your family, because in everything that you say, write, speak, I know that your children are a big, big part of what you do. And I think these are the new models that women are pioneering. Like, there's not the old model of separating everything anymore. And I'd love to hear like how that developed. Was that intentional? Was it unintentional? And how did that kind of flow into what you teach today in your legacy play?
That's a great question. And it's something that I love to share, because my truth is that I did not choose homeschooling at first. I was pregnant with my son, Jackson. They're 7 years apart. We didn't think we could have any more children. So he was our little miracle baby. And I was taking care of my grandmother, full care in my home after a stroke. So August came around. That's when Jackson was born, and he did come early, but her little private school said, we don't have enrollment. We don't have enough. It was back during that recession that we hit, in 2008, 2009. And so she's going to have to do something else. And I panicked because in Texas, where we were at the time, private schools, you have to apply way early. So there was no private school, and I didn't want to put her in public school. Lots of educators in my life, best friends and educator, and her kids didn't even go to public school there. Not that we lived in a bad area, just so many flaws with education in general that I'm aware of and she was aware of. And anyhow, I panicked. And the lady that owned the school said, listen, just homeschool her. You're going to be fine. Take a break, have your baby. Oh yeah, I panicked. I cried. I freaked out. I even called all the private schools in the area to see if I could get her in. I mean, it just was not something that I thought I would succeed at. I was great with people and businesses, and I obviously great with my daughter, but educating a child is very different from being a parent. And it terrified me.
And let's be clear, like part of the thing is like, and I'm also looking for somewhere to drop them off at 8:30 every morning. So, so I can get stuff done. And that's part of it.
Different relationship.
Totally.
It really is. And I think that's not to segue to the pandemic in any way, but I think that was what was so challenging for parents. The whole idea of distance learning and then everybody calling it homeschooling, they were completely different things. And it was just, there was no tools given to parents to help set them up. I mean, it would have been very easy to explain learning styles and how to best teach a child and how to be an educator. I mean, just any basic information would have been useful to not cause friction, and that the kids would actually have gotten something truly retention, anything out of that time and not to cause friction with the family. So anyhow, with homeschooling, that's how I fell into it. And truth is, we did terrible our first year. I bought an online curriculum, thought I had to follow it, thought we had to start at 8 in the morning and go to 4. I learned a lot that year. I learned about learning styles. I learned about teaching styles and teaching methods. I learned how to understand the best way to educate my particular daughter, and that it's very different kid by kid, person by person. It's the same with the adults in our life, with our employees. And that's what's so cool about this book is I give a lot of personal examples of both in my personal and professional world on how it's worked for me and how to see things and how to watch and to grow and foster these different sparks inside of all the humans in our life to get the best out and show them that they can achieve the best in everything that they do. So homeschooling was a terrible disaster for us at first. And then we kind of found that flow, and I understood what it meant to homeschool and how incredible it could become, what we could do with it. And then we started traveling. We took homeschooling on the road. They've been to 29 countries, and they've learned all over the world, met so many different people, been submersed in different cultures, learned history in the actual countries where it happened and their version of our history. And so it's been this really beautiful thing. And to bring it back to what your question was, you asked how all of that flows. Matt and I practice something called intentional congruence. And so everything has this flow in our life. And if it doesn't flow right, we're family first. We are that way with our employees, or we lead all our businesses that way. We expect our employees to lead that way because your family is your life. And without that, everything else sort of falls apart. So if something isn't serving us in business, if it's causing friction, same in our personal life, we shed it. We shed it, and we know that we're going to come out better on the other side for doing so. And we're good with it. And that's how we keep everything moving in a nice, balanced, healthy way. We have really good flow because of that. And it's important because if you try to compartmentalize, especially as a mom working and as an educator and everything else that's going on, you're going to just destroy yourself. And it's very damaging. And we're showing our children and the people in our life that we allow that to happen. And that's never a good thing. So, yeah.
I would say the first year is the bumpiest, as well. But we found our way into it. I think they were going to a wonderful small charter school we loved, but then it was handled so poorly, the transition to the home-based learning. And then we were like, okay, this is more stressful than us just doing it ourselves. Like, honestly, like what they were trying to do with the iPads all day. And I'm like, I don't want them on a gadget all day. And it was totally the antithesis of what we signed up for at this charter school. It was a Montessori-based learning, very independent minded. Yeah. And so we were like, oh my God, this is the absolute opposite. And that's when my husband and I looked at each other and I'm like, I know this is going to sound crazy, but he's like, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, all right. And literally we just got some workbooks off Amazon and I'm like, you know what? What were they at the time? Like 6.5, 7. So I'm like, we're not going to screw them up for life. We're pretty smart. So we jumped into it that way, but I did the same thing. I bought desks. I bought like a flag. I got a chalkboard, and downstairs it's still set up. I should take a picture. I have like a map of the world. Like I have like a little classroom, and you know where they end up? Like every day they're on the couch, like we're outside. They should be. So, we all kind of figure out our own system, but we start with what we know, right? We start with what we know. And then it ends up though being this incredibly liberating experience, because now with my husband's from Australia, and now once hopefully when the world, gets a little more easy to travel in, we'll be doing more of that travel again. And now we're not limited. And there's just so many great things that I think this happened to. And the group I run, The Trust, which is a group of women who are $1 million plus business owners, I would say of the ones with kids in there, actually, of the ones with kids, I think about a third of them right now are either homeschooling or doing some type of alternative school. It's such a shift. And entrepreneurs were already freedom-based. It's interesting how we already think in different ways, but education was kind of the last domino to fall for some of us. That was the last thing that like you could count on, where the bus comes at 8:30 and then I can get my shit done. Right.
Sure.
And we all kind of made a concession in that way. Right. But now we've worked through it. And I think there's so many of us that they're not going back. And so thank you for leading the way. And how old are your kids now?
Isabella is 17. She'll be 18 this summer. And then Jackson, he is 10. He'll be 11 in August. So it's been over a decade that I've been doing this. And I love, the really cool thing about the pandemic happening is that it opened up people's eyes and their their heart and their willingness to take something that's so important to their children into their own hands and then have confidence to do it. Comfort is one of our greatest addictions, and we're forced out of that comfort. It's such a disruptor. But then on the other side, incredible things happen once we do that. That's where the magic lies. That's where the dreams are realized, the goals are accomplished. It's on the other side of that comfort. So getting out of that, and women are just so resilient, and they have this, I always say, you think it can't be done, do it like a mom, because moms can accomplish anything because they have to. And it's just that strive forward and understanding all the different types of homeschooling and how to work that. Like we practice, especially with my son Jackson, because of how he learned and how he just functions as a human being. We practice interest-based, project-based learning. So it's always based around what he's currently interested in, and everything's incorporated in that. So the retention is there. He's always going to be interested and fascinated by what we're learning because it's what he's interested in right now. And that's the beauty of it. You can truly shape education around exactly what works best for your child. And once that clicked for people, especially women that are entrepreneurs, like, I slay it and everything else. I am the master of this universe, and I got the people, I got the relationships, I've got the products, I've got everything worked out. Why can't I do this for education for my kids? And how do I accomplish that? And so that truly was the challenge. But I think most women, they figured it out.
Yeah. We're so qualified.
Oh, sure.
And we had no idea. We had no idea how qualified we are as teachers. Where did you learn their learning styles? Is there an assessment you recommend? Or it's probably a great first step for a lot of moms listening for their kids.
Sure, actually, because that's a really hard thing to find. I found books on it, read a lot about it. A lot of people recognize 4 learning styles. I actually recognize 8. And that 8th one is truly based on the journey I've had with my son. But you can go to my website, jessicamead.com, and take the learning style quiz. You can take it for yourself. Your child can take it. There's a version that you can take for your child if they're too young. And then it kind of gives you an assessment of where you're at based on how you answer these questions.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, great.
Yeah. It just made it easy because, I was asked that a lot. And it's very frustrating trying to give people resources to go and kind of research and look into it. And then also on my website, we're about to put up the learning styles. I made video modules and then downloadables and everything to go along with it about all of the learning styles and teaching styles and everything.
Okay.
involved.
I didn't even know you had this. This is brilliant. So I'm on your site. So if you go to jessicamead.com, at the top, there's a little button that says view resources. And so this goes nicely with the book if you get the book as well, right?
Absolutely. Yes. They kind of work together. I did all of that and had what's in the book as part of the book and then expanded on that. And it's interesting how it kind of fell out, but it did it in a really nice and graceful way that suited the needs of everybody. But I'm a person that likes to make sure I give you everything, all the details, because I never want to walk away and feel like you don't have actionable takeaways with me. I think that's what's missing in so many of these seminars and different things that we get on and listen to, is that we don't have these actionable takeaways. We don't have anything on the other side to implement what we've learned. So it's always important for me to have those things. But all the videos and stuff will be up shortly. The learning style quiz is on there. And that's a great way to start and kind of see where you're at. And it's really funny.
I will do this.
Because you might learn something you didn't know about your child or about you just based on, it's kind of like all these personality tests, you see out there, and they're 70% accurate. But then you have other ones that, like Culture Index, that are 94% accurate, and they'll blow your mind. We actually use Culture Index when hiring for our companies so that we're hiring the right people and the right teams. And it's truly amazing. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to that, the whole psychology of it and science behind it. And this is just another tool.
Yeah. All right. The book, again, just to let everyone know, is called Firework Humans, Spark a Growth Mindset, Ignite 9 Entrepreneurial Instincts, Fuel Courage, Curiosity, Confidence, and Conviction. And the last thing I need to ask you, Jessica, the helicopter pilot, you are not a helicopter pilot.
Yes. So I am left-handed. I very much, like I said, I think 30,000 feet or above. my profile is a daredevil rainmaker. So it just kind of shows you that I'm up for a challenge. I like to constantly be stimulated that way. It's why I work so well with my husband in business. I did fixed wing. It's so incredibly boring to me because you get it, it's set. You're just kind of like you're up there, you're managing a little bit, but you're just kind of going with the flow. The challenge of flying a helicopter, both hands doing something different, both feet, your eyes are constantly scanning, and I'm left-handed. So it's set up backwards for me. So I love taking on a challenge like that.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's like, cool, I got this, no problem. And yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's also a way to clear my mind. You get up there and you can't focus on anything else except for what you're doing physically with your hands and then in your mind, scanning and watching your surroundings. So it's a super groovy thing that I do that I love. I've got a lot of little things like that are in my orbit. And I think that's important. We all find things that we connect with, no matter what people think about it. You get backlash like that's dangerous. You have a family. You shouldn't be doing that. It's a waste. There's always going to be criticism for everything you do. It just doesn't matter how you get past it. You can acknowledge it and you move on. Some people wear it like a blanket and it just destroys who they are as a human being. So it's something I do. I love it.
I love it. I think everyone should have a hobby like that that's kind of unrelated to what they do every day and then just requires all your focus. All your focus. Yeah. Like you can't be on your phone. You can't be futzing around. Like you can't think about anything else. I just think that's so powerful. Jessica, to wrap up, can you share 3 great pieces of advice for all the women listening around the world who are either entrepreneurs or want to be an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So a big one for me is trust. I would say trust yourself, but be aware of bias, specifically confirmation bias, and learn to look through multiple lenses in your life. And you'll see that often they're just different solutions or variables to consider. And then that's when you trust yourself to choose which one is best in that moment. Second, I would say regret. One of the things that I regret the most was all the time I ever wasted on regretting. Because the truth is, you make the best decision you could with the information you have at that time. And if you do number 1, which is trust yourself, you can stand by that decision and move on. Then you're not, beating yourself up in the process for what could have been, should have been. So regret, just let it go. And then I would say I got a couple, but let me see. What would I give for number 3? Maybe shift your focus from money, because the real value is making who you become in the process. You become bold, assertive, creative, giving, generous. That's a big one for me. You become this amazing human being, and the money will find you because money always finds that person. So
I love that.
I have so many. We could do 10 top things.
So that's why everyone needs to pick up the book. So everyone go pick up Firework Humans, go to Jess's website, download the resources. I'm going to have my kids do the learning style quiz. Thanks for providing that.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks, Jess, and take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.